Chapter 1. A Hero's Reward. The Galactic Call. The Galactic Union, a sprawling alliance of civilizations across hundreds of star systems, had faced one of its gravest threats, the Urlax hive, a biomechanical species that consumed everything in its path. The Union had been at the brink of collapse until a last-ditch effort by a human pilot named Derek Vance turned the tide of the war. Derek, a skilled engineer and combat pilot from Earth, had carved out a reputation for himself during the conflict. He wasn't just a pilot, he was the only human who had dared to infiltrate a Urlax dreadnought and detonate its central hive node. The explosion had crippled the Urlax fleet, buying the Union precious time to regroup and counterattack. His name had spread across the galaxy, and for the first time, humans and often overlooked member species of the Union had earned respect. The war was over, and Derek expected to return home quietly. But instead, he found himself summoned to Zitheron, the Union's glittering capital planet, for a formal ceremony. The invitation bore the seal of the High Council, its words reverent. In gratitude for your unparalleled bravery and service to the Union, we offer a reward befitting your heroic deeds. Derek, sitting in his quarters aboard the Stellar Vanguard, reread the message for the 100th time. His ship, a rugged personal cruiser, was docked within the Vanguard's enormous hangar bay. "What do you think it'll be, Carter?" Derek asked aloud, addressing the artificial intelligence embedded in his communicator. The AI's holographic projection flickered to life, a small sphere of light pulsing gently in the dim room. Historical data suggests rewards from the High Council often take the form of rare artifacts, honorary titles, or advanced technology, Carter replied, its tone clinical. "Given your contributions, a high-tier plasma vehicle, or perhaps a property on Zitheron seems likely." Derek chuckled. "A fancy new ship, huh? Not bad for a guy who grew up fixing tractor engines back on Earth." The AI paused, then added, "It is also customary for the Council to align the reward with the recipient's interests. During your service logs, you frequently mentioned acquiring a pet as a form of companionship." Derek blinked. "Wait, a pet? That's not exactly what I had in mind. Don't get me wrong, I like the idea of a loyal critter or something, but it's not Dash." "You did mention it several times, sir," Carter interrupted. "Specifically, your enthusiasm for Earth dogs, though you seemed equally intrigued by alien fauna." "Well, maybe they'll give me one of those Trivix lizards," Derek said, half joking. "They look like dinosaurs. Or maybe one of those fluffy epsilon tigers. A pet would be nice, I guess. But let's not get ahead of ourselves." Zitheron, the galactic jewel. Arriving on Zitheron was an overwhelming experience, even for a seasoned traveler like Derek. The capital planet of the Galactic Union was a wonder of engineering and natural beauty, a harmonious blend of technology and untouched nature. Towering spires of translucent crystal rose from lush green plains, connected by glowing bridges that defied gravity. The air shimmered with light from floating drones, and the sky was a kaleidoscope of colors, constantly shifting with the orbiting nebulae. Derek's cruiser docked at Elistra Spire, the Council's central hub, and he was immediately escorted by an honor guard of Velcrans, one of the most regal and respected species in the Union. Their towering frames, bioluminescent skin, and intricate ceremonial armor made Derek feel like a scruffy mechanic by comparison. "Human Derek Vance," one of the guards announced, his voice melodic yet commanding. "The High Council awaits you in the Hall of Luminaries." Derek followed the guards, his boots clicking against the crystalline floors as he entered the Hall of Luminaries. The chamber was enormous, its domed ceiling adorned with holographic constellations that shifted and danced. At the center of the room stood the High Council, a group of 13 representatives from the Union's most prominent species. "Derek Vance," said Counselor Tython, a Velcran whose glowing green eyes fixed on him with an air of authority. "You stand before us today not just as a representative of humanity, but as a hero of the Union. Your actions during the Urlax War saved countless lives." Derek bowed awkwardly. "Thank you, Counselor. I was just doing my job." A ripple of amused murmurs passed through the Council. Counselor Tython smiled faintly. "Modesty is a rare trait among heroes. Nonetheless, your bravery warrants recognition. It is the will of this Council to grant you a reward symbol of our gratitude." Derek straightened, his curiosity piqued. "I appreciate that, Counselor. What kind of reward are we talking about?" Another counselor, a diminutive but sharp-eyed Zixian, spoke up. Your reward has been tailored to your stated desires. You will find it both unique and personally significant. Derek exchanged a glance with Carter, whose holographic sphere hovered quietly beside him. Personally significant? He echoed. I mean, I'm open-minded. Is it a pet? The counselors exchanged cryptic smiles. In a manner of speaking, Tython replied. Bring in the gift. The unexpected gift. Derek turned toward the massive double doors at the far end of the hall as they swung open with a low hum. Two attendants entered, escorting what appeared to be a tall figure draped in a shimmering silken cloak. The figure's movements were graceful but hesitant, as though uncertain about what lay ahead. As they drew closer, Derek realized the figure wasn't an attendant or even a humanoid robot. It was a woman, a strikingly beautiful alien woman. Her silvery blue skin glowed faintly, and her deep violet eyes seemed to shimmer like galaxies. Her long hair, a cascade of metallic strands, caught the ambient light as if it were woven from starlight itself. Derek blinked, his brain struggling to process what he was seeing. Wait, this isn't a pet. The alien woman stopped a few feet away from him, her gaze fixed on the floor. One of the attendants stepped forward and addressed Derek. Captain Derek Vance, allow us to present Lyrian, a descendant of the Alari, one of the rarest and most revered species in the galaxy. She is gifted to you as a companion. Derek's jaw dropped. Hey, companion? What does that even mean? Counselor Tython stepped forward, his expression serene. The Alari are empathic beings with the ability to form profound bonds with others. Lyrian has volunteered to accompany you as a gesture of the Union's deepest gratitude. Lyrian finally looked up, her violet eyes meeting Derek's. Her voice, soft and melodic, carried a hint of apprehension. I am here to serve you, Captain Vance. Derek raised his hands, taking a step back. Hold on. This has to be a mistake. I thought you were giving me a pet, not Dash. A gift of this magnitude is rare, Tython interrupted. The Alari are highly sought after, but Lyrian chose this herself. She believes you are worthy. Worthy of what? Derek asked, still reeling. To share her life and abilities, Tython said. To form a bond that transcends language, species, and even time. Derek turned to Lyrian, who watched him with a calm but guarded expression. Is this true? You chose this? Lyrian nodded. Yes, though I admit, I did not expect you to react this way. Derek ran a hand through his hair, letting out a nervous laugh. I didn't expect this either. An uneasy beginning. The ceremony ended shortly afterward, leaving Derek alone with Lyrian in his quarters aboard the Stellar Vanguard. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken questions. Lyrian sat gracefully on the edge of a chair, her hands folded in her lap. I need to say this, Derek began, pacing the room. I'm not sure how I feel about this arrangement. You're a person, not a thing. I don't own you. Lyrian tilted her head, studying him. I understand your hesitation, but my role is not one of servitude. I am here to assist you to be your partner in whatever comes next. Derek stopped pacing, his gaze softening. Look, I didn't ask for this, but if we're stuck with each other, let's make it work. As equals. A faint smile touched Lyrian's lips. As equals, then. As the ship prepared to depart, Derek couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just become far more complicated and far more interesting. Chapter 2. A companion, not a pet. Adjusting to the arrangement. As the Stellar Vanguard cruised through hyperspace, Derek Vance found himself in uncharted territory both literally and figuratively. His new companion, the alien woman Lyrian, sat quietly in his quarters, her violet eyes watching him with calm intensity. Derek had spent the last hour pacing the room, trying to process the bizarre twist his life had taken. So, let me get this straight, Derek said, breaking the silence. You volunteered for this? To be handed over to some random human? Lyrian tilted her head slightly, her silvery blue skin catching the ambient light. I did not view it as being handed over. It is an honor among the Alari to forge a bond with an individual who has proven themselves worthy. Worthy of what? Derek asked, exasperated. I didn't exactly sign up for this bonding thing. Lyrian's expression softened. I understand your hesitation. Among my people, a bond is not forced, it is offered. I chose you because I saw the potential for harmony between us. Derek stopped pacing and leaned against the wall, running a hand through his hair. Harmony? I'm just a guy who got lucky blowing up a hive ship. I'm not some galactic hero. Lyrian stood, her movements fluid and deliberate. Humility is admirable, but your actions saved billions. Whether you accept it or not, you have changed the course of history. Derek frowned. You're really laying it on thick, aren't you? A faint smile touched Lyrian's lips. It is not flattery. It is truth. The Alari bond. Over the next few days, Derek began to learn more about Lyrian and her mysterious people. The Alari, he discovered, were an ancient species with extraordinary empathic abilities. They could sense emotions, connect to the energy of living beings, and even amplify certain traits in those they bonded with. This bond wasn't just emotional, it was a literal, symbiotic connection. You said this bond wasn't forced, Derek said one evening as they sat in the ship's lounge. But what exactly does it do? Lyrian took a sip of a glowing, translucent drink, a Trazen nectar that Derek had found bitter, but she seemed to enjoy. The bond allows us to share strength, emotions, and understanding. It enhances the abilities of both individuals. For example, your reflexes and cognitive speed may improve, while I can draw on your resilience and adaptability. So it's like a partnership? Derek asked. Yes, Lyrian said, but it requires trust and cooperation to fully develop. Derek leaned back in his chair, studying her. And what happens if we don't cooperate? Lyrian hesitated. The bond will weaken. In extreme cases, it can break, but such a rupture can have severe consequences. Severe how? Lyrian's gaze dropped, her voice barely above a whisper. It can harm us both, physically and emotionally. Derek sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Great. No pressure, huh? The first test. Their uneasy partnership was put to the test when the Stellar Vanguard received a distress call from a nearby system. A mining colony on the planet Zelora 4 had gone dark, its last transmission mentioning strange lights in the sky and machinery failing without explanation. Typical, Derek muttered as he strapped on his gear in the armory. I sign up for a nice, quiet ceremony, and now I'm investigating ghost stories. Lyrian stood nearby, her silken attire replaced with a more practical outfit, a form-fitting jumpsuit of Alari design that shimmered faintly. This could be a serious threat. Dismissing it as ghost stories is unwise. Derek raised an eyebrow. You're awfully serious for someone who just got here. And you are oddly dismissive for someone tasked with safeguarding lives, Lyrian countered, her tone even but firm. Derek shook his head, smirking despite himself. Fair enough. Zelora 4, a planet in peril. The mining colony on Zelora 4 was nestled in a rocky canyon, surrounded by jagged cliffs and swirling dust storms. When Derek and Lyrian arrived aboard a shuttle, they found the settlement eerily silent. The usual hum of machinery was absent, and the buildings stood dark and lifeless. Stay close, Derek said, his plasma rifle at the ready. I can sense fear lingering here, Lyrian said, her voice soft. The colonists were terrified before they vanished. That's comforting, Derek muttered. As they moved through the colony, they found signs of a struggle, overturned equipment, scorch marks on the walls, and faint traces of blood. But there were no bodies, and no indication of where the colonists had gone. Then, as they approached the central power station, Derek's motion scanner lit up. We've got movement, he said, signaling for Lyrian to stay behind him. From the shadows emerged a group of strange, insect-like creatures. Their exoskeletons glimmered with metallic hues, and their eyes glowed an unnatural green. They moved with unnerving coordination, their claws clicking against the ground. Void spawn, Lyrian whispered, her expression tightening. Void spawn? Derek asked, firing a warning shot at the nearest creature. The bolt struck its target, but the creature barely flinched. Corrupted drones, Lyrian explained. They serve the remnants of the voidborn. If they're here, the colony is in grave danger. The creatures attacked, swarming toward them with alarming speed. Derek fired his plasma rifle, picking off as many as he could, but they kept coming. Lyrian stepped forward, her hands glowing with a soft light. What are you doing? Derek shouted. Trust me, she said, her voice calm. As the creatures closed in, Lyrian unleashed a pulse of energy that sent them flying. The air crackled with the force of her power, and the remaining void spawn retreated, their coordination disrupted. Derek stared at her, wide-eyed. Okay, that was impressive. Lyrian's glow faded, and she looked at him with a faint smile. The bond amplifies my abilities, too. The colony's secret. After the battle, Derek and Lyrian explored the power station and discovered a hidden laboratory beneath it. Inside, they found evidence that the colony had been experimenting with voidborn technology, attempting to harness its power for mining operations. The experiments had gone horribly wrong, attracting the attention of the void spawn. They were trying to control something they didn't understand, Derek said, examining a shattered containment unit. No wonder this place went dark. We must destroy this facility, Lyrian said. If the void spawn gain access to these experiments, the consequences will be catastrophic. Derek nodded. Agreed. But first, we need to find out if any colonists survived. A growing partnership. As they worked together to secure the colony and destroy the laboratory, Derek began to see Lyrian in a new light. Her calm demeanor, sharp instincts, and powerful abilities made her an invaluable ally. And while he was reluctant to admit it, their bond was starting to feel less like a burden and more like a gift. You're not bad to have around, Derek said as they prepared to detonate the lab. Lyrian raised an eyebrow. Is that your way of saying you're glad I'm here? Don't push it, Derek said with a grin. The lab exploded in a brilliant flash of light, wiping out the voidborn technology and ensuring the colony's safety. As they boarded their shuttle and prepared to leave Zelora 4, Derek couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment and a growing respect for his enigmatic companion. Chapter 3. The Bond Tested. The Consequences of Curiosity. The explosion of the lab on Zelora 4 left Derek and Lyrian with more questions than answers. As their shuttle ascended into orbit, the last flashes of the destroyed voidborn technology illuminated the surface below. The colonists had gambled with dangerous forces, and their folly had nearly led to disaster. Still, Derek couldn't shake the feeling that the voidborn remnants were more active than anyone in the Galactic Union realized. Back aboard the Stellar Vanguard, Derek sat in his quarters, staring at the holographic schematics they had recovered from the lab. Carter, his AI companion, floated in the corner as a soft orb of light, analyzing the data. Looks like the colony was experimenting with voidborn neural links, Carter said. Their goal was to integrate voidborn processing power into mining systems. Highly illegal under Galactic Union law, but undeniably ambitious. Ambitious? Derek asked, raising an eyebrow. More like suicidal. They turned themselves into bait for those things. Lyrian, seated on the other side of the room, folded her hands in her lap. Curiosity and ambition often blind intelligent species to the dangers they face. The voidborn's influence is insidious. Derek glanced at her. You seem to know a lot about the voidborn. The Alari have long studied their origins, Lyrian replied. Our people were among the first to encounter the voidborn. We discovered their weakness, but at a great cost. Derek leaned forward. Weakness? That would have been nice to know before I started blowing up hive ships. It is not a physical weakness, Lyrian explained. The voidborn are drawn to instability, both technological and emotional. They thrive in chaos, feeding on the energy it creates. Their weakness is order harmony. It disrupts their hive mind. Let me guess, Derek said. This bond between us is all about harmony? Lyrian nodded. The bond strengthens our connection, which in turn weakens their influence. Together, we represent a stabilizing force. Derek smirked. So, I'm your anchor? And I yours, Lyrian said softly. A call for help. Before Derek could respond, the ship's intercom buzzed to life. The Stellar Vanguard's captain, a gruff Zerithian named Commander Vrel, appeared on a nearby holoscreen. Vance, Vrel barked, his reptilian eyes narrowing. You're being reassigned. We've received a distress signal from Halcyon Station in the Zanara sector. Reports indicate voidborn activity. Derek frowned. Again? I thought we wiped them out. Apparently not, Vrel said. You and your companion will take point on this. The High Council believes your bond gives you an edge against the voidborn. Derek sighed, glancing at Lyrian. Guess we're not getting a break anytime soon. It would seem not, Lyrian replied, standing gracefully. But if the voidborn are active in the Zelora sector, we must act quickly. Halcyon Station, a broken beacon. Halcyon Station, once a thriving trade hub, now hung eerily silent against the backdrop of the Zelora sector's twin suns. As Derek and Lyrian docked their shuttle, they immediately noticed the station's lack of activity. Its external lights flickered sporadically, and faint scorch marks marred the hull. Not exactly a warm welcome, Derek muttered as they stepped onto the station's main deck. The air was stale, and the faint hum of life support systems was the only sound. Lyrian closed her eyes, her expression tense. The voidborn have been here. I can feel the echoes of fear and pain. Derek adjusted his plasma rifle, his instincts on high alert. Let's stick together. Whatever happened here, I don't want to run into it alone. As they moved deeper into the station, they found signs of a struggle, overturned crates, scorch marks, and traces of blood. Yet there were no bodies, no survivors, and no indication of where the station's inhabitants had gone. Derek's motion scanner pinged suddenly, and a chill ran down his spine. We've got movement. From the shadows emerged a group of figures. At first, Derek thought they were survivors, but as they stepped into the light, he realized they were far from human. Their bodies were twisted and malformed, their eyes glowing with the same sickly green light he'd seen in the void spawn on Zelora 4. They've been corrupted, Lyrian said, her voice heavy with sorrow. The voidborn have taken them. The corrupted crew members moved with unnatural speed, their limbs contorting in ways that defied anatomy. Derek opened fire, his plasma bolts finding their mark, but the creatures kept coming. Lyrian, any bright ideas? Derek shouted as he reloaded. Focus on disrupting their movements, she replied, raising her hands. A wave of shimmering energy burst from her, sending the creatures stumbling back. They are connected to a central node. We must find it and destroy it. Lead the way, Derek said, firing at another creature. The voidborn node. Lyrian's empathic abilities guided them to the heart of the station, where they discovered the voidborn node, a pulsating mass of biomechanical tendrils that had fused with the station's power core. The node emitted a low, droning hum that resonated in Derek's chest, making him feel lightheaded. That's unsettling, Derek muttered, clutching his rifle. The node is anchoring their hive mind here, Lyrian explained. Destroy it, and the corruption will dissipate. As they approached, the node's tendrils lashed out, forcing them to dodge and weave. Derek fired his rifle, but the energy bolts seemed to have little effect on the node's dense, metallic surface. It's not working, Derek shouted. Lyrian closed her eyes, her body glowing faintly as she reached out to the bond. Trust me, Derek. I need your focus. Derek hesitated, then nodded. He lowered his rifle and placed a hand on her shoulder, allowing the bond to fully connect them. A surge of energy flowed between them, and Lyrian's glow intensified. Together, she said, her voice calm but commanding. They moved as one, Derek providing cover while Lyrian directed the energy of their bond toward the node. The tendrils writhed violently, but their combined power overwhelmed the node's defenses. With a deafening crack, the node collapsed, its energy dissipating in a wave of light. The aftermath. As the station system stabilized, the corrupted crew members collapsed, their bodies reverting to their original forms. Medics from the Stellar Vanguard arrived shortly afterward, tending to the survivors and securing the station. In the quiet that followed, Derek and Lyrian stood in the observation deck, gazing out at the twin suns. The bond between them felt stronger than ever, a quiet hum of unity that neither of them could deny. You saved us back there, Derek said, his voice soft. I couldn't have done it without you. Lyrian turned to him, her violet eyes shimmering. We saved each other, Derek. That is the essence of our bond. Derek chuckled. You're starting to grow on me, you know? A faint smile crossed Lyrian's lips. And you, on me. For the first time, Derek felt a sense of purpose that went beyond his own survival. Together, he and Lyrian were more than just an unlikely pair, they were a force to be reckoned with. Chapter 4. Unity in the Face of Annihilation. The Voidborn's Final Gambit. The Galactic Union's emergency distress channels buzzed with alarming news. Voidborn activity was spreading across multiple sectors, far faster than anticipated. What had begun as isolated attacks on colonies and stations now threatened entire systems. The remnants of the voidborn hive mind were converging, forming a massive biomechanical construct near the Draxus Nebula, one of the Union's most vital trade routes. Derek Vance and Lyrian stood aboard the Stellar Vanguard's command deck as reports of destruction poured in. Commander Vrel, the Zerithian captain, addressed the crew, his gravelly voice laced with urgency. We have confirmed that the Voidborn have assembled a Nexus core, the largest structure of their kind. If activated, it will allow them to rebuild their network across the galaxy. This is our last chance to stop them. The room fell silent as the weight of the situation settled over everyone. Lyrian turned to Derek, her bioluminescent skin glowing faintly. The Nexus core is the heart of their hive mind, she explained. Destroying it will sever their connection permanently, but its defenses will be formidable. Derek nodded, his jaw tightening. Sounds like we don't have a choice. If we don't stop them now, we might not get another chance. Preparing for the assault. The Galactic Union assembled a coalition fleet, bringing together ships and crews from every corner of known space. Derek and Lyrian were given command of a small strike team, tasked with infiltrating the Nexus core while the fleet engaged its defenses. As the fleet approached the Draxus Nebula, Derek and Lyrian prepared in their quarters. Derek checked his gear for the third time, his movements restless. Lyrian observed him calmly, her empathic senses picking up on his unease. "You're worried," she said softly. "Of course I'm worried," Derek replied, pausing to look at her. "This isn't just about us anymore. If we fail, billions of lives are on the line." Lyrian stepped closer, her violet eyes meeting his. "The bond between us is stronger than anything the Voidborn can muster. Trust in it, and trust in yourself." Derek let out a breath, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "You always know what to say, don't you?" "It's part of the bond," she said with a faint smile. "But I also believe in you, Derek. Together, we can do this." The battle at Draxus Nebula. The Nexus core was a monstrous construct, its massive tendrils stretching across the Draxus Nebula like a cancerous web. It pulsated with sickly green energy, and its central core emitted a low, ominous hum that reverberated through space. The coalition fleet engaged the Voidborn forces surrounding the Nexus core, the battle erupting into a cacophony of plasma fire, energy beams, and explosions. The Voidborn ships, grotesque and organic, fought with ruthless efficiency, but the Union fleet held its ground. Derek and Lyrian's strike team approached the Nexus core in a heavily shielded dropship, weaving through the chaos of battle. As they neared the core, the dropship's alarms blared. "Brace yourselves," Derek shouted as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. "We're almost there." The ship docked at a damaged section of the core, and the team disembarked, stepping into the dark, pulsating interior of the Voidborn structure. The air was thick with a metallic tang, and the walls seemed alive, writhing with biomechanical tendrils. "We need to move quickly," Lyrian said, her voice steady. "The Nexus core is protected by a central control node. Destroying it will destabilize the entire structure." The core's defenses. As the team moved deeper into the Nexus core, they encountered wave after wave of Voidborn drones. The creatures were larger and more aggressive than those they had faced before, their glowing eyes locked onto the intruders. Derek fired his plasma rifle with precision, his movements sharp and controlled. Lyrian fought alongside him, her hands glowing with energy as she unleashed powerful blasts that sent the drones sprawling. "This way," Lyrian called, sensing the path to the control node through their bond. The closer they got to the core, the more intense the bond between Derek and Lyrian became. They moved in perfect synchronicity, each anticipating the other's actions as though they shared a single mind. Confronting the Nexus core. At the heart of the structure, they found the Nexus core, a massive sphere of pulsating green energy surrounded by writhing tendrils. The air crackled with power, and the hum of the core was deafening. "The control node is inside that sphere," Lyrian said, her voice tense. "We'll need to breach it." As they approached, the tendrils lashed out, forcing them to dodge and weave. Derek fired at the tendrils, creating openings for Lyrian to channel her energy into the core. But the core fought back, releasing pulses of energy that sent shockwaves through the chamber. "Derek, I need you to focus." Lyrian shouted, her glow intensifying. The bond will amplify our power, but only if you trust me. I trust you, Derek replied, gripping her hand. The bond between them flared to life, a surge of energy coursing through their bodies. Together, they directed the energy into the Nexus core, their combined strength overwhelming its defenses. The core began to crack, its pulsating light growing erratic. With a final burst of energy, Derek and Lyrian unleashed a powerful blast that shattered the core, sending a wave of destruction rippling through the structure. Victory and sacrifice. As the Nexus core collapsed, the voidborn forces across the Nebula faltered, their hive minds severed. The Coalition fleet seized the opportunity, destroying the remaining enemy ships and securing the area. Inside the collapsing structure, Derek and Lyrian raced back to their dropship, the walls crumbling around them. They barely made it aboard before the Nexus core exploded, the shockwave rippling across the nebula. Back aboard the Stellar Vanguard, the crew celebrated their victory. The voidborn threat had been eradicated, and the galaxy was safe once more. A new beginning. In the aftermath of the battle, Derek and Lyrian stood on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. The bond between them had grown stronger than ever, a connection forged in the heat of battle and the depths of trust. You know, Derek said, his voice soft, when they first handed you to me, I thought this whole thing was a mistake. And now? Lyrian asked, her violet eyes shimmering. Now I can't imagine doing this without you, Derek admitted. Lyrian smiled, her hand brushing against his. Nor can I. Our bond has made us stronger not just as individuals, but together. As they stood side by side, the galaxy stretching out before them, Derek knew their journey was just beginning. With Lyrian by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring.